I ideally want to build a firm where culture is important, where I used to tell people, if only my staff skip to work.
So how do you create a culture then that makes people skip to work?
It's important to have key leaders within the organization to espouse, to share the same values.
Marcus Liu, the driving force behind Savills Singapore.
So what was one lesson that you learned from rejection or failure?
Well, in every sales vocation, you get a lot of rejections. It's really about detaching yourself from the rejections. It's bound to come. And psych yourself to continue to move forward. It's all in the mind.
So how do you tune out the negativity then?
Just
Welcome to Savills Shares. This season, we sit down with key industry leaders to talk about their journeys and perspective on leadership qualities. Our guest today is the CEO of Savills Singapore, a real estate stalwart with more than 25 years of industry experience. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jack.
So let's start off with asking you, what is something that most people do not know about Marcus Liu?
I do a lot of landscape photography. And there was a moment in time when I contemplated about being a photographer.
What made you change your mind?
Real estate. It's an interesting profession which I was quite keen to get into, just about completing my university studies.
What started that passion for landscape photography in the first place?
It's just being there, being at the right moment. You could be waiting for hours just to press a button. I don't shoot digital, I shoot film. So you have to be very precise in terms of what you're trying to achieve. The framing, the composition, the calibration in terms of the metering, all that takes a lot of consideration. So that I have an interest in and patience in wanting to achieve the outcome. And of course, when the lab develop your slides, you will be like a schoolboy, waiting for what's gonna happen, and you see the results. And sometimes it turns out well, sometimes it doesn't.
And is there a particular photograph that you took that is especially satisfying for you?
Yeah, there's a couple, and I've given some of those to my friends, close friends, autographed them, frame them up nicely, and it's on their walls.
So now you entered real estate in 1999 and you have never looked back since. So how did you know that this is exactly the industry you want to go into?
I was actually inspired by an individual who is a veteran in the industry. His name is Edmund Tai. And when I was schooling, I remember reading Edmund Tai's real estate prowess during the 90s. I was still in university then, and he had an interesting article that caught my attention. It was on the front page. He said there are 3 ways for you to make money. Number 1, you do well in stock exchange. Number 2, F&B. And number 3, clearly he would say real estate because he's in real estate, right? And in that article, I can't remember the exact details, but through that article, I was inspired by what he said. And I told myself, that's an interesting industry, and that's perhaps something that I should explore. That was in the early 90s. And during university days, I would have exchange modules, because I was from economics. I have an economics background.
Right.
And I would have exchange programs, cross-faculty to understand real estate, how they market real estate, how they do valuation, and so on and so forth. So I had the interest in real estate even before I graduated.
And you ended up working together with Empathetic, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I spent 2.5 years at this firm. I learned from the best. It was a very interesting vacation, and I never looked back since.
So what was one challenging lessons that resulted from, say, rejection or failures that you learned a lot from and bounced back from?
Well, in every sales vocation, you get a lot of rejections. And it's really about detaching yourself from the rejections. It's bound to come. And psych yourself to continue to move forward. It's all in the mind. You can't be closing every transaction. There will be difficult customers. So through experience, you have to learn how to handle difficult customers. And some of these customers, through projects that will take some time to complete, become friends. On average, a good salesperson will probably hit 30% of the number of people that they speak to. You can't, it's not a one shot, one kill kind of vocation. You have to canvas, you have to learn from the mistakes, learn from all the rejections, and tune yourself out from the negativity and be positive and continue to do what you believe is correct for your clients.
So how do you tune out the negativity then?
Just focus on the positives. Focus on what I'm doing, what I felt was doing is correct. Compare notes with other industry players, compare notes with veterans of the industry, and you sort of have an assessment in terms of whether you feel you are doing it rightly or doing it wrongly. There will be, like I said, there will be a lot of rejections. To enter into this industry, you have to have a huge stomach. Stomach, when I meant stomach, I mean stomach in terms of disappointment.
Right.
Sometimes even your best clients could disappoint you because they have their own objectives, they have their own protocols to adhere to. But it's all business. You just have to learn how to win more than lose more.
And not to take things too
Personally. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, you lived through many different market cycles like the global financial crisis as well as COVID. How did you manage to deal with those downturns on your own, and also while at the same time motivate your team?
I mean, I wouldn't say I dealt with those downturns on my own. I mean, real estate is a people's business, and we all work in teams. It is very challenging for somebody to excel in this profession or in many other professions if you are handling it solitarily. You work in teams, you work in groups. So through those interactions and engagements, it is important to circle yourselves with people who are positive as well. One can only take this much in terms of rejection, but it's always good to have a co-worker, a colleague, a friend who you can seek counsel, again, like compare notes, and just motivate each other when times are bad. So during the financial crisis or during COVID period, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Everyone was depressed. But what's fundamentally important is the team stuck together and the team members motivated each other. That the sun will continue to rise, the sun will continue to set. So what do? We have to stay positive and we chug along.
Speaking of that, I mean, Warren Buffett famously said, somebody is sitting in the shade today because someone else has planted a tree long ago. It talks about foresight and vision. How do you go about creating one that is just right for your organization?
I'm somebody that don't profess that I know everything under the sun. There are many things that I do not know. There are many things that my colleagues know better than me. So I think it's always important that we learn from each other, regardless of what level. Whether you're the junior clerk or you're a CEO. I think the thirst and the interest to continue to upgrade and to learn from people who are better than you, that is fundamentally very, very important. And as far as vision is concerned, I feel that I'm standing on the shoulders of other successful colleagues or my predecessors who have built the business to a level where it's given me good grounding, good fundamentals to continue to take the business to the next level. So in summary, in order for me to succeed, in order for me to have a good vision, I'm standing on the shoulders of great people.
So on that note itself, what is your vision for Savills for 2026?
I would ideally like to build a company, not just for 2026, I think for 2026 and beyond. Well, I've taken over the business from Chris Merritt in 2018. And the mindset for me and my aspiration for the firm hasn't changed, in the sense that I feel that I'm liable for people's rice bowls. I'm liable for ensuring that the company continue to move along on an upward trajectory. And that to me is very important, so that people continues to be gainfully employed. My aspiration has always been wanting to build a great company. When I mean great, it's not by turnover or profits. It's really about building a platform where co-workers, colleagues enjoy coming to work at Savills. I genuinely care that Savills employees enjoy the work that they do. So I'm constantly engaging with them, at various levels. So I think I take an extra effort to ensure that civilians, they are in the element. They really like contributing and working at Savills. I think that to me is the epitome as a definition of a great company. I ideally want to build a firm where culture is important, where I used to tell people, if only my staff, my co-workers skip to work, and then they enjoy working. Because if you were to spend the dominant years of your life working, you might as well enjoy it.
True.
If you drag your feet to work, if you lament and say, oh, gee, not another day. Come on, man, give me a break. If you carry those mindset, right, then you will not be at your best when you're at work, which only means that this is the wrong vocation for you, which only means that you would be better served doing something else where you are happy. Because once you're happy, you will contribute more effectively, not only to yourself, but to people around and to the organization. So that to me, it's an important vision. Everything else is secondary. If you have the right culture, you have the right mindset, and people are happy coming to work, they will feel that they are positively contributing to themselves, and in so doing, they are also contributing to the firm. Everything else will look after itself.
So how do you create a culture then that makes people skip to work?
Well, I wouldn't say they are now skipping to work, but I would say a good portion of employees, staff at Savills, they enjoy what they do. I think it's important to have key leaders within the organization to espouse, to share the same values. I can only do this much, right? I mean, we have now probably a staff strength in excess of 3,000. I'm not in a position to ensure that every single one toe the line or every single one shares the same vision. So it is important that within the organization, there are important key people who shares the same vision, and hopefully they cascade that vision down to everyone that they are managing. It's a team effort. It's just not me saying, no, oh, you guys got to skip to work, and then everybody skips to work. No, I think it's a collective effort, and it's not something that's done overnight. It could take years. I'm comforted to hear from colleagues to say that, prior to 2018, a lot of teams are still very siloed, working individually. They're only concerned about their own P&L, only concerned about their own clientele. And over the last 5-6 years, I take comfort that a lot of these walls have been broken down. And you can see At first glance, a lot of teams are working cohesively together. They are collaborating. They are asking all the right questions. That to me, I see it as a success in terms of trying to build the right culture. Is there room for improvement? For sure.
Speaking of culture, is there a correlation between corporate culture and a company's P&L? Meaning happy staff, more money the company can.
If I got to reverse the question the other way, I'm changing I've changed my mindset a little bit. Some people are saying, look, when are you going to retire? You know, maybe in 10 years, in 15 years, in 5 years, who knows? But I like to change the mindset. And I hope I can change people's mindset. That's provided they enjoy what they do. I enjoy what I do. And some would say that, oh, great, you're at a level that you should only work for another 5 years or 8 years before you retire. But I see that as a negative. I see that last 8 or 10 years as my last runway, and I need to make the best out of it. I tell myself, right, I say, look, you mean I've only got 10 years left before I retire? You mean I've only got 15 years left before I retire? Gee, time just flew by like that. So I think mindset is very important. And coming back to your question on culture cascading down, into building the right culture. Once you have the right culture where people enjoy coming to work, we'll forget about the P&L. The rest will look after itself, as I said before. When somebody enjoys what they do, the results will speak for itself.
Savills recently acquired Alpina, and 2 years ago, Absolute Maintenance Services. And within Savills itself, there's more than 15 business lines that offers a huge variety of real estate services. So with so many different departments and companies, how would you build a cohesive culture across that?
Well, it's not a one man's job, and it's not something that could be done overnight. I think it has to start with me, leading by example. I've always kept a very transparent, open culture within the organization. Anybody can reach me easily. I sit out in the open. I make sure that I speak to all individuals from senior level right down to the junior level. And I hope that leading by example, other leaders will also do somewhat the same. I don't sit in the ivory tower and pretend that things are all rosy. I make sure that things on the ground, it's happening for a reason and happening for a good reason. And because of that openness and that transparency, I guess through that, maybe through osmosis, if that's the right word to use, other senior leaders within the business follow suit, and there's somewhat a positive culture within the organization. And like I said, can more be done? For sure. I mean, the business is growing at such a pace where sometimes it's very hard to catch up. You cannot run so fast, so far, where your people couldn't catch up. So it's important to sometimes slow down a little bit, look back, and ensure that the rest are following and coming along. And then that's quite important.
Let me bring you back 11 years ago where you make the leap from another firm to Savills. Were you apprehensive at all? And how did you deal with that?
Apprehension was probably the wrong word to describe. I was concerned for my team members. We've worked together for many years. I was with Colliers for close to 15 years. And it was an organization that gave me a lot at the time. It took a lot for me to decide to move on. It's a leap of faith. I trusted my instincts that perhaps Savills would allow myself and my team members to be better at what we do. And thankfully, I think the results spoke for itself. we achieved a record year in the second year of inception of 2 teams coming into as one. So it was a very good result. But at the same time, I felt that the change needed to happen. And sometimes opportunities like that, they don't come too often. And as I said before, it's a leap of faith. I like to sometimes carry the mindset, not all the time, sometimes carry the mindset, depending on the situation, where life is short. If you don't do it now, when? There's also something else that most don't know about me, which is I nearly died in 2006. It was a horrific car accident in Koh Samui. And I still remember vividly. I lost control of the Jeep. I had my colleagues with me. The car went off the road. It was in the night. It was probably about midnight or 1 a.m. We were on the way back to our hotel. Dimly lit streets in Koh Samui during that time, as you can imagine. The Jeep skidded off the road, went onto gravel. It went beyond control. There's nothing I could do to stop the car. It was just moving so fast on rocks and pebbles. Hit a tree, decapitated it. Upon impact, the car flew mid-air, somersaulted, and landed in a ditch. All of us had to climb out of the car. To cut a long story short, the police came. I was taken back to the scene the next day. And to my horror, where the car landed and a vertical drop from the cliff was a mere 10 meters, less than 10 meters away. Had that tree not be in that way, the car would have flew off the cliff. And we won't be having this conversation for sure. So that episode was tragic. Also helped put things in perspective for me, that life is short. We have to believe in our gut, go with it, make the best out of what's given to us. So that's sort of the mindset that I carried. And when the opportunity came, when I left to join Savills 11 years ago, I took it.
What was going through your mind when the car was somersaulting?
I don't think I had time to think. Everyone was screaming and shouting. I thought we were goners. Seriously. And it didn't dawn on me until the next day, because previous night it was all dark, pitch dark. It was in the next morning when it's all in open sunlight, and you could see that vertical drop of the cliff, and that's when it dawned on you. Oh my God.
Was there ever a moment in your career that you felt worried or out of your depth?
No, never. Because as I said before, I don't profess to have all the answers. If you don't know, ask. There are a lot of people within the organization that are doing things way better than I can. Okay, I see myself as a steward, as a guardian of the firm, captain of the ship. Colleagues have different vocations, different skill sets. They are there for a reason. Some of the stuff they're doing, they're way better than I do. I don't know, I always ask. So there wasn't a time where I felt that I'm out of depth. So for me, it's if I don't know, I don't know. Just ask. So that's the mindset that I carry. And of course, I hope that my co-workers also carry the same mindset. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I think through dialogue and through interaction and through engagement, we all learn how to be better. And sometimes you'd be amazed that your staff could give you better solutions than I could come up with.
When you think back on your childhood, was there ever a moment or memory that shaped the way you are as a leader today?
Yes. I'm big in sports. I play a lot of football. I played since I was 3. And like I said, this also applies to running a company. Because I've been in a team since a young age, I value the importance of being in a team and how effective being a team can be in achieving results. One person can only do this much, but as a team, we can do a whole lot more. Because I play football, so there's a goalkeeper, there's a defender, there's a midfielder. So for me, I'm a forward, I'm a striker. I put the ball in the net. I can't defend or I can't be a goalkeeper to save my life. So you leave it to people who's better at that to do their job to the best of their ability. So I think sports help shape my mindset, and sports also help me understand that you can't be good at everything. Sports also help me understand that many times you have to learn to trust your teammate. You have to learn to trust your co-workers to deliver. You can't take everything in your hands and make sure that you want to do it the way you do it. You just got to have trust. I think trust is also very important. So that psyche in sports sort of helped me build my character when I was young, all the way up to varsity level. And then if I take it further, beyond sports, I think my stint in military service was also a very important milestone in my life. I know a lot of people have been lamenting, say it's a waste of time spending 2.5 years in NS. What do you get out of it? You'll be 2.5 years later than your peers or your female friends, right? Who have joined the workforce 2.5 years earlier. I saw my military service as a very, very important milestone. One that I promote quite heavily to young people, that especially in today's generation of young people, that it is absolutely, absolutely critical, I feel, for any male or females, if they want to do it, to go through national service. Because it builds discipline, allows you to interact with individuals from all walks of life. And my vocation, I was an engineer. I was building bridges. I was blowing up bridges. I was handling demolition. Imagine the discipline that requires you, to be at the strictest level in arming an anti-tank mine or a claymore mine. Any mistake that you make could cost you your life. So that discipline, that ethos was at the front of mind. And of course, I was managing a platoon of diverse backgrounds, from scholars all the way to youngsters who are perhaps not that well educated. They speak in their dialects in camp. And I was tasked to ensure that they all come together as a team to make sure that we don't blow ourselves to bits. And that's why discipline and ensuring that everybody moves in one direction to complete the task and the mission, for me, were important lessons in military. So that formed a very important imprint in my life. And I carried that to adulthood.
The whole process of bringing diverse demographics together and working together sounds like the foundation of where you are today, bringing different people in different roles as the CEO of a company. So much credit has been given to those formative years.
Yes. Without sports, I would say without sports, and without my NS stint, I would be a different person.
What kind of a leader would you describe yourself to be?
If I have to use one word, probably empathetic. I like to put myself in the shoes of others and try to understand why they're doing what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing, and whether there's a better way to do things. It's easy to criticize. It's a lot harder to take a pause, understand, evaluate, and perhaps, a more thorough conversation should be had to take things forward. So I'm not one to lead by critique. There's a reason why somebody or a team is doing a specific thing. It's important for me to understand why they're doing what they're doing. So I have to choose one word. I think it's empathetic leader, if that's the right word to use. I had an ex-colleague who left us probably 6 years ago or 7 years ago. And she left a note on my desk. And in that note, to cut a long story short, she said that she's worked with many bosses before, and through our engagement, she felt that I was the most empathetic and culture-focused executive that she has ever worked with, and it was an eye-opener for her. And that to me was a music to my ears. So that's good to hear that at least I'm doing something right.
And has your leadership style evolved through the years?
I would say yes. I used to be a lot more impatient. I think over the years, I've learned to be a lot more patient. I guess it comes with age. And the business, as I've said before, has grown to a level where it's unrecognizable in a good way since I took over. And again, I'm dealing with all sorts of characters. So it's all the more important that I'm I have to be patient and understand why people are doing certain things the way they are. I would say my leadership style has evolved.
And you've spoken about talent acquisition being an issue that's faced by many different companies. So do you think that loyalty is dead?
No, I wouldn't say loyalty is dead. It comes back to an earlier comment that I made about building the right culture. I don't believe that all employees in one organization are working like clockwork, where every cog fits together nicely and they all move in unison. There will be some parts where it's slower, there will be some parts that's faster. So it is important for every employee to understand and appreciate his or her place within the organization. I think once there's a greater understanding of the individual and how that person feel they can contribute, everything will work a whole lot better. So in terms of the organization itself, I think it's multifaceted. It's important to continue to have discourse and engagement and to learn.
And how do you then foster that connection, that elusive quality that we nowadays we call loyalty?
Dialogue, engagement. Maybe it's more prominent in today's generation of workforce where they change vocation, they change companies every 2 to 3 years. It's very rare to find somebody that's been with a firm for 10 years and beyond. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing when people move, but to answer your question earlier, is loyalty dead? No. I guess when people move, perhaps they haven't found their calling. Or perhaps, like I said, the cogs are not fitting quite well. Maybe they feel they're better suited somewhere else. There are still a lot of employees within the organization that have been with us for many, many years.
You spoke about trust earlier on, and that's key to every relationship. And relationship is key to real estate. How would you advise someone on how to build relationship and trust?
You need to have genuine interest in your clients. You can't be there just for the sake of making a quick buck. Even there is a scenario where choosing an alternative could have made you more money individually or for the organization, but at the expense of the client, and that shouldn't be done. So I think once you practice what you preach, your clients can feel that. And your clients will feel that, working with Savills or working with this individual is very refreshing. They really have interests at heart for my company. And when that happens, that's when you build trust and you forge strong relationships with your clients. And some of my clients have become friends.
You're way too young to retire, but what would you want your legacy to be?
I mean, we spoke about retirement, right? I was just lamenting that perhaps like another 10 or 15 years to go. That's like way too short. Can you give me another 20 or 25 years?
Well, don't retire.
Yeah, yeah, probably. So it's a mindset, right? I look forward going to work. How I want my legacy to be, I hope people at Savills can skip to work. They look forward going to work. You see, everything else is a subset. If you look forward going to work because you know that you enjoy what you do, all else will look after itself. It's financially, emotionally, spiritually very rewarding. How many people can say that they actually enjoy going to work? I've got friends who say, I got to wake up from bed, go to work, clock in, clock out, do the same stuff over and over again. Now, if you carry that mindset, it's either it's a wrong vocation for you, or B, maybe you should retire early. So that's very sad. If we spend predominant part of our lives working, and we should enjoy what we do.
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier on about, maybe they haven't find the right calling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, if they find the right calling or find the company they really appreciate them or they enjoy working at, they don't feel this need to retire so early and they can continue working happily.
Correct. If I have to use an analogy, say, for example, engine of a car. I wish everyone is running at 6 cylinders. Some will be at 2, some will be at 3, some 4. If everyone is running at 6 cylinders, the organization will be a whole new different level.
If you are able to go back in time and speak to your 21-year-old self, what would you tell him?
I would probably tell him to take more chances. I would tell my younger self to believe in his gut. Yes, instincts. And as I grow older, running an organization, sometimes I have to remind myself, is this the right decision or the wrong decision? It's a paralysis of analysis, right? So sometimes you take too long to decide. So many times you just have to believe in your gut, believe in your instincts, and go. And run with the decision that you've sort of formulated in your head. Yeah. So you have to tell my younger self, just believe in your gut more. More.
Well, thank you so much, Marcus, for joining us on Savills Shares. We hope that you have a wonderful 2026 ahead with Savills Singapore.
Well, once again, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us as well. You can catch the full seasons of Season 1, Savills Shares, and 2, plus the new episodes on Season 3 on Spotify and YouTube Music. And do subscribe to both these channels so that you get the latest information. Till the next episode, God bless. This podcast is for general information only and should not be taken as professional advice. Savills accept no responsibility or liability for any direct or indirect or any consequential loss from the use of, reference to, or the reliance on this podcast or its content.